Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3.
Why, hello, and welcome to My Whiskey Den, your favorite public access whiskey review show where craft whiskey is king. And tonight we have a wonderful show where we're pulling in one of our favorite distilleries, Northern Waters, but a different distiller this time, which is wonderful. We have Jake. Hey,
got a new guy.
We got a new guy. Things changed hands a little bit ago when Cal and Sarah helped purchased the distillery from Pete, and Jake is their new head distiller. So Jake, we are happy to have you with us, and you got us 2 new releases that I am very intrigued to try because they are unique and on different ends of the spectrum, kind of.
Completely polar opposites on these two for sure.
So thank you for being with us. But before we go any further, Mike, do you want to tell our fans about the lovely Bar Cart Co-op?
I would love to tell the fans about the lovely Bar Cart Co-op as soon as I can get all the stuff clicked over here. And there we go. All right. We are proud members of the Bar Cart Co-op, which is a collection of friends who create content for the whiskey and other distilled spirits public. The Bar Cart Co-op YouTube and Facebook pages have information about upcoming and past special shows, which happen about every quarter. There are blind tastings, distiller panels, discussions of special collaborations, and the usage of unique grains. Bar Cart Co-op has educational and fun episodes for your enjoyment. Distillers Talk is the oldest show in the group that's hosted by Christy Atkinson and Alan Bishop. It's a conversation with people from distilleries and distillery adjacent that gets into deep and sometimes off the rails and back again discussions with their interviews. New episodes arrive at the end of the work week. And if that one is not nerdy enough, please check out One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. This is a show where Alan Bishop answers any questions about distilling and often puts them to the test. It could be individual grains, mash bills, equipment, and methodology. New episodes come out randomly, so subscribe. And then there is Bourbon Turntable, where they mix the love of music with the love of whiskey. They have conversations with musicians, writers, distillery folks, and common folks about music and whiskey. It releases every Wednesday on all your platforms, including YouTube. They're doing a hiatus of new shows for a couple of months, and in the meantime, they're doing re-releases of some really great episodes. So please check those out if you missed them. Then we have If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything, which is a show about the spirits and paranormal among us, as well as the unexplained and the spiritual. Subscribe on Spotify to get the 4 previous seasons and the 5th one in progress. And last but certainly not least, we have the Whiskey in My Ring podcast, where David Levine talks with people. David asks good questions. David takes good notes. David does all the things that we don't do.
So thank you, Mike, for doing that. And like I was saying before, recently, about a year ago, Jake Donahue and his sister Sarah Johnson and husband Cal ended up.
What happened?
How bad was that, Mitch?
Well, my dog just took out about a dozen floor bottles. I'll be right back.
Well, we'll see Mitch in a couple minutes.
Hey,
I thought I had nerves.
we've had many things break over the last few years.
That's awesome.
Right on the show.
Mike had a bottle of Promethean that's just slipped out of his hand and just went like this, thud, but the whole top half went.
It tapped another bottle. It was an almost completely full bottle. It tapped another bottle and it just broke it diagonally and just went all over the place.
I do check out once in a while and people are walking out of here and I hand them a bag with 2 bottles and I said, don't drop this because I'm going to cry. You're going to cry. It's just going to be a mess for all of us. And then I got a mop, so that's even worse.
So, all right, and like I was saying, it was recently purchased, and we waited about a year for everyone to kind of get their footing under them, kind of underneath themselves owning it and being your own distillery again after a purchase, even though it's the same products and a lot of the same people. It's nice to have once you kind of feel like you have a little bit more ownership of it yourself. So, we were happy to have Jake here with us this evening. We're going to talk about what brought him to Northern Waters and what he was doing before. But as we're going through, we're going to sip on some of this Fox Red.
Mhm.
My screen listens. It is, and as you can see, I did give out some samples, but it was well loved on Friday night as well too. We had a few people over and wanted to see what everyone thought of it. So this is a cherry and almond flavored whiskey. Why don't you tell us how you came to wanting to make this? Because this is since we're gonna be sipping on it first, I kind of want to start there, and it's a unique brainchild. So I just want to get into the background of it for you.
So first, thanks for having me. This is a cool opportunity. So the Fox Red is like a lot of things here. You try things and you have dismal failures, and sometimes things work out really well. This one was like 4 different tries at a recipe because it turns out that anything you put in with alcohol and cherry, it's instant Robitussin. And I know we've all experienced that fixed Formula 4 Robitussin buzz from the cherry alcohol thing, and we did not want that. So we took our old 51 wheat whiskey that was a real good starter for us, and it just it wasn't selling as well as our other whiskeys. Bourbon is one of our products that is a real hard one for us to keep in stock because it does really well in the tasting room. It's probably one of our number 1 cocktail sellers. So that one wasn't a problem. Our Poacher's Rye, which I think you gentlemen have tasted, that one is doing well. The wheat whiskey just doesn't have the body like a big bourbon or a big rye. Those lighter flavored whiskeys are made for, introductory kind of drinkers. And then the flavor profile kind of goes along that same line. So Pete kind of gave me the opportunity to play with that wheat and said, we're starting to build up a little bit of inventory. The barrels are starting to get of age. Let's find another way to drive that wheat whiskey home. So coming from the distribution world, flavored whiskeys are another opportunity to get things into the market. It hits that new consumer, it hits that young consumer, maybe that new drinker, pulling people from the vodka and rum world that is already predominantly flavor profiled, that a flavored whiskey is just kind of that next step. So cherry is the first thing I wanted to try. I was a big fan of Jim Beam when they came out with the Red Stag. It was big whiskey forward, but I was almost getting kind of an artificial flavor profile to it that I didn't really like. Mm-hmm. So we went with, we use a Bordeaux cherry that is a part of our garnish program for our old fashions. So at first it just came with that Bordeaux cherry juice that we were pouring off kind of as a waste product. We blended it with our wheat whiskey and it turned out to be okay. But I was getting that medicinal quality, that big, like I said, that cough medicine profile. So you just start thinking, what they say, that flavor and then smell are your 2 things that help your memory along throughout your entire life. And I remember when I was growing up, my mother used to use Jergens hand lotion. And I remember that cherry almond, that real distinct flavor, not flavor, it's not something you ate, but that smell profile is something I remembered. So we actually blended up our own almond extract here at the distillery. We took that old 51 wheat. We actually put in 5 pounds of the almonds with about 5 gallons of that wheat whiskey. We let it sit for a month, put a couple of vanilla beans in there to give it a little extra flavor profile, blended that with the cherry, and then added that to the whiskey, and it took that medicinal flavor away. It was that little bit of help that the thing needed to take away that medicinal value and gave it that extra depth of flavor that we were missing.
Very cool. Now, like I was saying before, and we'll get into some nosing notes and stuff here, but what were you doing before you came to work at Northern Waters?
So I was born and raised in the Northwoods, about a half hour north of Minocqua up in Northern Waters. I graduated from Lakeland High School in 2000, went across the state over to UW Stout in Menominee on the western side of the state. Got my bachelor's degree in hospitality, tourism, and restaurant management. Cooking and that kind of thing was always been a passion of mine. I've been in kind of the hospitality industry since I've been 13. Started as a dishwasher, moved into a prep cook, and then school just kind of took it to that next level for me. Cooking is still a passion of mine. You know, one of those guys that I don't eat to live, I live to eat. So getting into the distillery world and the spirit world kind of went along that line. When I graduated, I worked at a restaurant for a couple of years until they sadly went out of business. And one of our liquor distributors came up to me and said, "Hey, you know, I heard that the restaurant you were working for kind of went out of business. If you're looking to get into the liquor side of things, we got a merchandiser position open, which is just chasing trucks and building shelf displays and building, 500 case displays in the middle of the stores," which was cool, foot in the door, not super rewarding. There's a lot of calluses, a lot of broken fingernails, pulling shards of glass out of your fingertips when you're reaching into a case of bottles and there's some broken stuff in there. So I did that for about 4 months, and then a sales route came open in the middle of the state in Marshfield. I applied for it. I got absolutely lucky, and that was my career path for the following 15 years. So I got that chance of getting into the liquor industry through that avenue and absolutely fell in love with it.
Well, and you came at it from a different angle too, of the distributor side, and then working on this side. So some pitfalls or sides of the game that are being played on the opposite side that maybe have to be, but you're aware of it. You know what I mean? Like,
sure. In that timeline, it was that onset that the flavor market was absolutely blowing up. It was the change of the traditional cocktail line of, your grandparents drank Kessler, and maybe there was a little bit of bourbon in the market. Vodka was predominantly martinis. The flavor program hadn't come yet. It didn't take long to light up the entire world. Any flavor that was alive was in a vodka. That same flavor profile went right to rum. Bourbon fell off the map. So I got to experience that growth of literally different suppliers taking handfuls of flavor profiles, throwing them against the wall, and hoping one or two of them are going to stick. So I got to learn the marketing side of things, realize that it's okay for a brand to fall off because flavors were coming so fast. You would actually walk into an account with your battle bag with 5 different flavors, and every month you were getting 5, 7, 10 new items. And before you would even get one set, there was a whole line of other stuff coming behind it. So being able to play that balancing act and be successful in your market, you learn that fast. And thank God for the old guys that I worked with to start with, because they said, just take a deep breath, do what you can, look in the mirror. If you can smile at the end of the day and think that you did the best you could for that brand that day, you're going to be okay. And that worked for 15 years. So it was a very good footstep to get into the distillery world. I had a good basis of, brands and the marketing and how to play with different things and how the little nuances and products change and can make you interesting one day and an absolute fool the next if you're not careful with things. So
yeah, those are all neat insights. If you're not getting them from the one side, you may not have them. They're extremely valuable. Mike and Mitch, we're getting on the nose on the Fox Red?
Sherry.
Okay.
Low hanging fruit on that one.
That's it, folks.
Nice home run, and he's out of here. Yeah.
Know your strengths.
I can tell you are using a different cherry. I was gonna say the Bordeaux because like a deeper, richer cherry note than just kind of like the normal maraschino or like ice cream cherry, if you would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what one thing we try to push hard is get rid of that artificial quality. No red 40, no stabilizing ingredients, no flavor enhancers. Let the cherry come through. The natural sugar of an organic sugar is the way we sweeten it. We do that with with all of our products here at Northern Waters. No artificial colors. The color you see in the bottle is either from the barrel on our aged products and from whatever flavor profile we want our products to taste like. So our vodkas, if they got color, it's from the natural fruit. Our sweeteners are that agave nectar, organic sugar, honey, maple syrup. So everything we try to do natural. We try to derive that true flavor profile in our products.
This is a little harder to see, but this has a really kind of rich, kind of almost red purple finish to what, or visually to it. It picked up a lot of the cherry note visually. It almost looks like a darker wine when you're looking at it.
Almost a big burgundy wine, right?
Yeah, and I was gonna say, and you get a little bit of like a chocolate note, but the almond nut is what was throwing me off because it has this little waxy note to a nut that you can get right on the outside. And to me, I was just getting that part and I was having a hard time pegging, not knowing it was almond. I always try to pretend I don't know what's in something. And a bit of me was getting like a Brazil nut rather than the almond on the nose. But when you get to the actual flavor, you can tell I'm totally wrong.
I think the aged whiskey kind of throws a little wrench into that too. I think the cherry in that barrel age gives you a little bit of throw too.
And you get a little bit of a light dusty note from the wheat whiskey, like right on the bottom of the glass. So, or at least on the nose.
So I have a random question. How did you choose this in particular cherry? Was it just convenience, or do you really hate like Bing cherries? Or
I like the idea when you're doing your old fashions, that kind of stuff. Having that quality premium garnish can really set up your cocktail. That cheap, dyed almost neon red maraschino cherry in a cocktail. If I get that in a restaurant, I'm not happy with it. Luxardo cherries have come so long, such a big way with a good cherry. It adds a flavor value to your cocktail. And that's what we wanted in this whiskey also. Add a flavor profile to it, add some dynamic. So when we used our first recipe was just it was the waste cherry juice of that Bordeaux cherry we use on our garnishes at the distillery. And it ended up being a good starting point, but it wasn't something for us. We didn't know how popular this thing was going to be. Like I said, once in a while you go a flavor profile, and if it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit. And then you're stuck with a bunch of stuff that you can't sell. So you're going back to the drawing board. We were lucky enough that the flavor profile hit. And immediately we realized that the waste product from pouring off the jar of cherries was not going to sustain us enough cherry juice to keep this thing going. So then you have to go to the sourcing world. And sometimes that can be kind of a crapshoot. But we got real lucky with the concentrate we picked. It was from the same company that makes our blueberry concentrate for our blueberry basil vodka that has done so well for us. They also make the blackberry for our Black Lab whiskey. So we knew kind of the quality of that concentrate that was already available. So we pulled some samples. We started out with a non-sweet dark cherry. Wasn't quite right. And then we kind of settled on that 65 grip sweet dark cherry, and that was perfect. It led almost same flavor profile as that Bordeaux cherry juice we were using, and it gave us that constant supply of cherry that we were looking for.
Okay, now we haven't talked about the flavor yet, but what was there more intent with this to be used with cocktails? Because just in tasting it, like you said, I can easily see this in a Wisconsin old fashioned. It almost tastes like some I've had without building on top of it. And with some of the other light notes, I was gonna send Adina's in the chat. I was gonna send her some because she's a cocktail whiz, and I just wanted to see where her brain went with this because there's a lot of different ways I think you can play with this
right
mix.
And when we wrote up kind of the description of the product for our label, it states it's one of those all-inclusive kind of spirits, and that's kind of how I liked it to be. I wanted it to be that. You can drink it straight up as a cordial liqueur. It's light enough proof, it's sweet enough for it to hold up that way. It's got a nice body, it's got a nice viscosity, it holds up really well on the rocks, and then it still has enough backbone. Being cherry, it's a good base. That whiskey, I think, holds through, that it's awesome as an additive or as your main ingredient in your old fashioned. So it's that all around, all kind of environment kind of product. And I think it works kind of that way.
All right.
Yeah. This is I like to equate a lot of notes to food for obvious reasons. But one of the things this really reminded me of is, and also, and I'd already sipped it as well, but the nose just has there's like a concentrated jam note, but then there's a cookie with almond extract note that I'm getting off of it, and that was on the nose, and then when I tasted it, it's like, this reminds me of these cookies that my grandma used to make. That was a soft, sweet, a little bit of it had a little. I think it had a little molasses in it too on the cookie, but then it had jam in the middle of it on the top, and on the palate, I was like, oh, this reminds me of grandma's cookies.
Solid endorsement right there, right?
Yeah.
Maybe like grandma's kisses off a highball too, maybe.
No, this is really nice because you can go the direction of too sweet, and we make jokes about diabetes in a glass, and
Right.
you could have done that very easily,
Absolutely.
but you guys, it's pulled back and it's nicely done where it is not super sugary sweet, sickening. Like I could sip this all night and I feel pretty darn good about it.
Yeah, one of the worst headaches I've ever had is when you get that back of your head sugar high.
Oh my God. Oh,
I
yes.
can't stand that.
When you can feel that coming the next day too, it's like
You are in the middle of the night. Yeah. You wake up and like, why is my head? Oh yeah, that's why.
Yeah. You only have 3 cocktails, but you had 5 pounds of sugar, and that's where it's coming from.
Yeah. Half a bag of Oreos and 4 old fashions.
Yeah, I don't know if any of us are of the age class anymore that we go flying around the house for about 4 hours to wear it off. So we're going to bed with all that sugar. It's got to go somewhere.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Mitch, your thoughts? Because I have mine when I originally had it, and I still have that first feelings. I just don't want to. I'll let you go first.
So kind of going off of what Mike says, it's sweet, but it's not overly sweet, and I really, really appreciate that because it is so hard to make a flavored whiskey that isn't overly sweet. And it doesn't taste like Robitussin, which is very impressive for cherry. I don't think I've had a cherry whiskey this well balanced before, where you do get cherry and then you do get the whiskey note coming in behind it, and you get a little bit of that almond, and it all just comes together well without being artificial or, just right.
Yeah.
For me, on the entry, it's on the tip of the tongue. It's almost like cherry juice. Like it hits like that at first, and then it's almost opens up like it's this fortified cherry wine that fades away, and then you get some of that the whiskey wheat notes, a little bit of the barrel note, and the almond rolling through on the back half. But it has so much of the actual fruit flavor where it's sweet, but right where it gets up to sweet, it pulls itself back down and keeps itself right out of that bad wine, bad whiskey, bad finish category. But I was amazed how much, like when I had it, I really did think like fortified wine and like closed eyes when I had it, because it was so dense with what the note was, but then like I said, the whiskey was hidden underneath. But it's just that first entry note for me, where it's almost like this really nice cherry juice that you're drinking before it opens up into everything else.
Yeah, I was leaning in like the fortified wine. It's like hinting of it, but with no funk. And then as I started getting into it, I was like, what does this remind me of? And that's when when I started getting like the little bit of the bready and the almond extract. That's why I went to grandma's house the whole time. So it's really nice.
When we first started tasting here, I was getting more of those like old tawny ports almost. You're almost getting that 10-year, 15-year, just that smoothness, good fruit flavor forward, and having that alcohol quality that balances it.
When you mentioned it being more like a cordial, I mean, there's a couple like Wood Hat and some other ones where it does have a little bit of that cordial, sweet, neat kind of flavor to it as well too, if you were going to go that route. So I thought it was neat that you mentioned that, because I can see that. But going back, it has a really neat, like almost chocolate cherry, almost like obviously the almonds in there, but like an almond chocolate cherry note.
So I got a note, but I didn't say it because I didn't want to insult you. Because Queen Anne's was the first thing that popped to mind, but I don't like Queen Anne's cherries. So it was like, oh, this is like a good Queen Anne's cherry, instead of just, hey, how are you doing? Well, I lost 2 teeth and I ate a cherry, because it's that much sugar. Like you can tell there's good whiskey in there, because it goes from that cherry juice, that Pat said, and it gets cut with good whiskey. Like that's the second note I get. So very well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dave and Adina are already thinking up stuff in the chat. So we'll get a sample out to them. I always like to see what they come up with things, because she made a good cocktail out of Malort. So
I find that hard to believe.
It started with smart ass comments that were like, okay, we need to have a cocktail with cheesy poofs, Malort, cheesy poofs, and whatever. And so she came up with a cocktail with Malort that had cheese balls, and I don't remember. I think it had a McRib garnish.
Grapefruit White Claw, and something else, and it was really damn good.
But she's won. Adina has seriously won one large cocktail contest, and rightfully so. And her handsome assistant has helped her out.
To get Malort to taste anything like Malort is a good challenge on its own. I actually had a buddy that he fat washed it with some high end beef fat, and thought he could, I don't know, mask it or whatever. But it was just some greasy Malort, and that wasn't any better.
Greasy Malort.
Greasy Malort. Yeah. He was so proud of it. And he goes, "You're a liquor guy." He goes, "You'll appreciate that." He poured me a sample. I saw the ring on the glass, and I went, Malort's bad enough by itself, and I think you made it worse. So good job.
Those things, like, it sounds like you might be able to, and then like you said, you started like, oh no.
You should have left it alone. It was bad enough, and you made it worse. Good job. Proud of you.
Someone who mixed it with Pedialyte to make thick Malort, and that's all I can think of with greasy.
It was bad.
Okay, well, we'll get off the Malort section, because that's just disturbing. So
I have a question for you. Given where you started with spirits and stuff, have your tastes evolved?
It's actually evolved just being in the distillery. Pete taught me to pride himself in the cuts that we do for making our whiskey. We're not afraid to sacrifice a little bit of that front side of the ethanol run and sacrifice the back side of it. We're not a fan of the heads and tails, and we're making a clean cut that I think comes through our whiskeys. It's to the point that, and this may sound biased, and I'm okay if it does, I almost can't drink 90% of the stuff that's out there on the market from the big boys, because I'm getting sensitive. I get sensitive to that heads and tails. I can catch it. It's not something that I like anymore. I'm getting super sensitive to artificial sweeteners. I'm getting sensitive to artificial coloring, and people think I'm crazy, but I can taste it. and I've proved that I can taste it. And so, yeah, my taste profile has definitely changed. I've also noticed that my style of drinking's changed. I'm not that quantity guy anymore, which is a good thing. Quality is a lot more fun. The headache doesn't last as long, so that's a good thing. Having 1 or 2 cocktails of the quality side is way better than trying to beat your buddies at the bar.
When you're having 1 or 2 for the first, that's in the first hour, like, oh, poof, hey, poof, okay, how's everyone doing now?
Right. Yeah, when you're sitting at your bar stool for 3 hours and the first time you stand up, you feel it. Yeah, you're on one.
Oh no. Sorry, I went back to this one because it has a dark cherry note. I really like it. I want to figure out how to play with it.
It's a great. I mean, honestly, it's a very nice, easy drink with a lot of flavor to it. And as I said, very surprised because you would expect, it's like, I got a lot of sweetness, whatever. You get sweetness, you just don't get a disgustingly hostile amount of sweetness like you do, like you said, with a lot of stuff where you're like, I'm going to take a sip of this and my mouth is going to stick to the glass. No, you're not, because it's just very well done. Very well done.
So the other thing is, it's not too tart. I should probably throw that out there, because I can't take super tart cherries. Like I eat them and my mouth puckers, and I'm like, wow, that's not for me, right? Like a Rainier cherry or just a Bing cherry, just slightly off.
Well, I didn't want you to think that you were fighting gout. I wanted you to actually enjoy the cocktail.
But it's hard to do, right? I think we've all had either something way too sweet or way too tart before, and you hit really well.
I think if you went tart, you would have a hard time finding more uses for it.
When you go tart, it covers up the whiskey, because the way my palate works is you always catch that sweet first, and as soon as that tart hits, it kills everything else for me. So the sweet seemed to allow the whiskey to come through. If we went originally with that tart, and it covered your palate too fast, and then nothing else came through.
Nice. All right, now the next one we're gonna move on to is one that started when Pete was there, but you guys. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, that's a good question. So would you say it's kind of like a cherry bounce?
I was actually I was watching Moonshiners not too long ago, and they had a cherry bounce competition, and that's the first thing I thought of. Like, how would mine do? It's not clear, so it's not in the traditional cherry bounce kind of profile. Not moonshine, so it's not traditional in that sense. But I don't know. I think it tastes good enough that I would like to put it into a competition for it.
I think I'd like to see it because it has enough of the right flavoring, but it's not. That's the problem with some of those other cherries too. They get overly sweet in the cherry bounce with other sugars and stuff, and this just doesn't have that. So this, I think, would set really. I think it's set really nicely. Now I got to figure maybe that's what this does at the end here is make some new cherries.
There you go.
Very welcome. But like I was saying, we got another one here that you started with Pete, and you guys finished everything on it after you left. This one is from the experimental or the Vault series you guys have, which I'll be honest, we have really enjoyed everything you guys have had from your Vault series. You guys have done some really neat, different things, and you had that one Master's Reserve one that was like peanut butter and chocolate, and these are always unique.
I know you have a question maybe later, but these are where my loyalties lie. Where my favorite things are to make are those experimentals, and see where they end up going. We have our staples that we make, on a 3-week rotation, but on that 4th week when we get to play with our experiments, that's where this kind of stuff comes from. And these are the ones that I'm passionate about. These are a lot of fun.
So, Why don't you? What is in this one? I was going to say, if you can tell us the mash bill, and where did you end up getting the peat? Because I almost have an idea of where just by the nose.
What's your guess?
Well, For me, it gets closer to like a Lafroig peat in my mind, but that's just on the smell, or Coloman, one or the other.
So this one's 100. This is a true peated single malt. It's 100% peat all the way through. So this is from that crisps. That's 100% crisp Scottish malt, and it's their heavy peat. So this one's like that Lagavulin, Lafroig, right in that wheelhouse. That big, dirty iodine, not ashy, a little bit of sweetness, just wonderful. That acquired taste that I think everybody should acquire.
Just
but there's the nose, like initially on this, I didn't get to try this at Distill this last year because I was being very, I don't want to say picky, but I was being methodical, and I ended up only trying like 22 or 23 things the entire time there, because I kept track of the list, and I was like, hey, you know what? I did what I could, Mitch. But
you can do better.
And then afterwards, everyone's like, "Did you go try the peat at Northern Waters?"
Rookie numbers.
No. Well, anyway.
I think this is one, maybe two things I tried twice while I was there.
See,
I remember Mitch coming back for this one. He left.
Yeah, they went back repeatedly.
Yeah, he came right back and went, "Dude, I need that one again." And I went, "Yes, sir."
There's almost a mezcal nose
on the second back half of it.
Yep,
like this creamy, smoky richness to it.
It does. It's got this oily, buttery, custardy peat, like a mezcal.
Not as deep as some of the mezcals I've had, like that Bosel, I think it was.
Yeah,
that was so thick. This isn't quite like that.
You remember it, Mitch?
I remember a lot from Distill America. I remember the feelings that drinks gave me from Distill America more than I remember the drinks themselves, which is helpful because after we left, right, we went and bought some of the bottles that gave me good feelings, but this wasn't available, so I kind of had to make do.
Oh, yeah, because this, when I have it, I think this in a blind, I don't know how many people would put this on the American side of things, though I think the undertone from the peat, the backbone and background, if you taste that more so, I think you'd be able to tell it's more American that way, but the peat is so bold in it. And I don't know, but it is really nice. Sorry, I'll go back for some other notes in a second here.
So I'll give you the barrel information on this one. This one was aged 41 months in a 15-gallon Northern Waters bourbon cask. So that would have been a 2-year bourbon in that cask, and then we put this peat right on top of it.
It's the bourbon that I think rounds out a little bit of that from the 8. I don't know. Because you do get that hidden in the backside. You get a little bit of that light caramel sweet sugar note that you might not necessarily get from just the single malt.
The fact that there is not 50 gallons of this is the biggest thing wrong with this whiskey.
I knew you were going to say that, so I counted today. I have 10 barrels in inventory of different ages. So, and I actually made a note. I knew Mitch was going to ask me this because he asked me this at Distill America. So I did my homework on this one. The last one we just did was in September. So we got another batch coming. That was 3 more 15s. So this one is something that we're going to try to keep around because we really like it.
Oh, and you also said this is coming out in a finished version soon, possibly at the distillery.
Yeah, it's going to be released. It is actually in bottles right now. It is in inventory, in rotation. We have 1 6-pack left of the Birdshot that is currently available, and then that peated cab finish is the next one in line. That one's coming right behind this one.
hold on here. I gotta get Spencer's question. He's wondering how much single malt do you guys do in general compared to everything that you guys have going on?
We're doing one malt a year. So that we did this one, and I was just checking again. We did it in September of 24, so it'll be probably early next fall before we do it again.
Well, that's awesome. And understandable, because you guys do have a lot of other product lines going. Just for this, I mean, between doing gin, vodka, your moonshine, then the bourbons and the ryes, it's pretty full lineup if you're doing the distilling. In my mind, you don't get many free days.
No, we just added a couple new ones that just came out on release too. So we're up to 34 different bottles in house that we're making.
Good luck, sir. Good luck.
I love it.
What are you guys getting on the actual flavors here? Because I'm just like I said, I roll so hard into the peat and I get lost in it. It's my problem. So
yeah, but it's not
like there's sugar cookie underneath this.
Yeah, there's a. It's not heavy at all. It's very, very layered in flavors, and that's the thing that I kept writing pleasant. It's just nice vanilla, butter, peat smoke, just a little bit of cookie. It's like just very nice and pleasant and very, very easy to drink.
What I like about it, in response to different peated ones I've had, it doesn't have that ashy profile to it. I kind of like that.
That's the thing it's missing from when I said Lafroig before, because usually when I had Lafroig for the first time, that was probably it was a very good experience whiskey when I had it. Like, it brought me someplace. I went to an old, dirty 1930s or 40s hospital where they used that shitty cleaning antiseptic stuff on the floors. That you came in, it's like, well, it's clean. I don't know if I believe that. And they still smoke cigarettes where they're operating on you. That's where I went when I had that, and I'm like, this does not have the smoking cigarettes.
Wisconsin is what you're saying.
It doesn't have two of those notes in it, but it has that that neat little bit of to me Lafroig edge to the note to it, but it's missing some of the harsh edges that Lafroig has.
I'm learning something. I'm not going to the hospital Pat's going to. I can tell you that.
I wasn't around in the 30s or 40s, but I remember going to, or an old
show up with two kidneys, you leave
with
one.
It's like this. You walk in, you're like, this isn't a good place.
So it has taken me this long to figure out what the nose is, because it has not been. I think my nose might be shot, but if you imagine a barrel stave where you toasted it like you were making a creme brulee, but about 3/4 of the sugar you put on there was actually salt. That is what this nose is to me. There is an absolutely lovely woody flavor there, a lot of salinity, a little bit of sweetness there behind it. Oh my gosh, is it good?
See?
Yeah. It's very this is very, very nice to drink.
And I included this in my last year's because I had it last year, but you guys didn't really have it till this year. Mm-hmm. So this was a runner-up for a single malt of the year for me, because it was so much fun to see something like this come out of America, and especially Wisconsin, that I loved it. Dave is wondering if you guys do spruce vodka.
That's still doing would be inaccurate. We still do the white pine vodka. I'm not sure there was ever a spruce, not that I've worked with, but I have done a couple of batches of the white pine. Yeah, we're still doing that one.
So the palate is interesting because a lot of peated whiskeys are super oily, but it's a very kind of dirty, oily feel, because that's where a lot of your, peat flavors coming through. This is not that way. Like when Mike says buttery, that's kind of what I'm getting. Like it's oily, but the oil in it isn't peated. It's not like that dirty peated oil. It's just pleasant is a really good word for it.
You added the butter after you didn't run it through a strainer.
It's creamy. That's the thing. It's like that just carries the flavor. I'm just sitting there, just like I'm playing with my tongue and writing notes down, which I know it sounds like I should be committed, but it's just really, it's that creaminess just carries the flavor and it sits, and then the finish, it's just like this little peppery finish on it, and not much. It's just a little bit. There's just like, it's kind of like sparkles at the end. We're just like, hey, it's done.
I think it's like a medium peat, but I was gonna say it's bold enough to be there, but when it fades away, that's what like you said, little sparkles, like you have a little bit of that peat clinging around on your tongue as all the other notes kind of fade away into it. I liked it then and I like it now, so that's just I wanted you to both you guys to try it again because I was waiting for this one to come out feverishly.
I regretted that I did not try this at the still when I heard about it after the event that evening. You guys were all talking about it, and it's like I had a goal and I was trying to not go crazy or do stuff like that, and that was one of my main regrets because you two had talked about it, Morgan had talked about it, the Robinsons talked about it. I think Ewald's like everyone's talking about it. I was like, I really feel like I missed out on something here.
Well, and Pete kind of set this up for you how many years ago that it was coming?
Yeah, we knew a while ago.
Yeah, but we could never believe anything Pete said.
So I will throw out there, this tastes, in my opinion, how every distillery has their own kind of peat. Like Ardbeg peat doesn't taste like Lagavulin peat, doesn't taste like Lefroy peat, doesn't taste like Coloman peat. This reminds me of Lagavulin peat.
Without the ashiness, you're probably right. I don't do enough of. I don't drink enough peat in general or peated scotches anymore.
That's
fair.
Know.
You go in cycles.
So I mean, for me, Ardbeg is a lot more meaty. Lefroy is a lot more like iodine-y. Lagavulin is woodier peat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I always got that campfire finish off of that one. That campfire smoke versus that big ashy smoke.
That's a good one. Yeah, I see. Okay, I'm gonna put that down. That's going.
So since I'm having trouble thinking because I'm drinking amazing whiskey, I do have another question. So a little bit about the transition, right? You don't want to new coke it, right? And just make everybody hate you. So can you talk about the transition and how it's been, navigating? This distillery was there and Pete was making great stuff, and now you're there and you're making great stuff. How do you transition from Pete to you? What do you keep similar? What do you do different?
So I get a chance to do the tours. And I like telling the story about, Pete took the lumps for us. When you're in business for as long as he was, and being an ant in a world of monsters and doing something right, you kind of got to keep that going. So, being that he went through the growing pains to get us to where we're at, I'm continuing that. There's a couple things we did to kind of clean up the process, give us maybe a little bit better efficiency. We switched up our yeast a little bit just to give us, a better yield on our strips, a better yield on our fermentations. It's ended up working out great in our end products. We're getting a sweeter, smoother whiskey. And I guess I explained the barreling process that if you have a problem in your white spirit, my experience is it compounds in the barrel. So if you're doing it right to start, that when it's in the barrel, you got a better chance of something special coming out. And Pete really stuck that home. I got a chance to work with him for the last year he was here. So I got a year with him before he left, and that was invaluable. And when he left, I remember him coming back in and slapped me on the shoulder, and he goes, all right, Big Jake, he goes, this is yours to take to that next stratosphere. You know, the goal was to fill our aging room that we call heaven. We just put our 415th barrel into storage. So that's a big accolade for a little place. The experimentals, they're not stopping. If anything else, they're getting bigger and maybe a little more adventurous. I took some notes on stuff that's coming out. More high rye bourbons are in the run. We're playing with different malts. So we got a high rye bourbon with a caramel rye malt finish.
Yay!
So we're playing with that. I'm getting into more of the smoked malts, the smoked cherries and caramels and chocolates. Those are coming together in bourbons and ryes. We're playing a lot with our local fare here. So we're playing with our wineries and our breweries. I just finished what I'm calling our Sweetie Wheat. It's essentially our old 51 wheat whiskey, and then we put 11 pounds of Citra hops at the end of it. So we have that beautiful sweet wheat whiskey and that little bit of almost an IPA hop finish, and we got that sitting in a couple barrels that I think is going to be dynamic and a lot of fun. So I love that some of this stuff maybe sounds stupid, but going back to what Pete said all the time, I say, hey, Pete, I want to try this. And he go, why not? It's only stupid if it doesn't work. So as much as we're keeping things the same, we're completely screwing things up with that potential of what might come out of the barrel in a couple of years. But maybe I'll be here to experience that. Maybe I won't. We'll see what happens.
Well, I think with what you guys are doing, I think you'll be around for quite a long time. That's neat. Like I said, you got to have a little something that's your own twist or your own put on things that you do. What are some projects these are coming out now? What's something that you have in your head that's you're working on that you want to have come out? Maybe it's just an idea now. Maybe it's a year or so in. But what's something you've done that besides like the Red Fox here that you're excited about?
Those experimental whiskeys I'm really having fun with, playing with those specialty malts. It seems like the beer industry has kind of taken advantage of that for so many years. I think it's time for some of the distillers to take advantage of that stuff. And being a smaller distiller where you don't have to play the game of every bottle has to taste the same when you pull it off the shelf, that gives us an advantage. So playing with those big chocolate malts, putting Citra hops in a traditional wheat whiskey is probably totally out of bounds, but it's a lot of fun. Playing with and giving the distillers, or not the distillers, but our brewery friends ideas of saying, I made that sweet wheat whiskey with that Citra hops. Can you make a beer in that same sort of mash bill? And then let's pair them together and serve them together and see how that comes together. Pushing the age certification a little bit farther than maybe a 15-gallon barrel can handle. Right now, we're getting essentially 2 years out of a 15 and 3 years out of a 30, and pushing it to 3.5 to 4 to see if that's making a difference. Doing those odd double barrelings, putting a peat single malt in a wine cask. I don't know anybody that's doing that. We took a brand new peat and we put it in a maple syrup cask, and we're going to see how that turns out. We changed up our rum portfolio. I'm doing 100% blackstrap molasses rum. Okay. And I've talked to a couple of rum houses and they said, you can't do it. And I said, yeah, we did it. And it's because it's coming out pretty dynamic. So just changing up how end taste profiles, making, our stamp on things. So when people come in here, there's always something new going on. Always a new bottle to grab.
Oh, with 34 labels, there's going to be something there. You can find it.
Just got to work on that distribution.
State of Wisconsin's getting pretty well covered. In the last year, our distribution went way up. So Capital Houston and Allstate have really done us some good things, and it seems like the sales force and that crew is really stepped up for us. I think we've proven that our products can stand on their own, and the partnership is really supporting us with that. So that's been good.
Yeah, good. They can be like New Glarus, where we're only going to do Wisconsin.
Stop keeping the good stuff.
Hey,
Yeah.
We can be like Canada. You know how that is.
Yeah.
That's what they do too.
Well, I was curious, like how far south into Wisconsin is your distribution going?
We're right on the Illinois border.
Are you?
Oh yeah. So
Okay then.
our
Plans are
Yeah,
being
we're-
formed.
I know.
We're right on the Illinois border. We're right on the Minnesota border. We're right on the Michigan border. So our stretch, our reach is getting there for the state.
Okay.
All right,
Good to
so-
know.
So we started something earlier that could be an abomination or could be outstanding.
Yeah.
Is the blend of these two. Hey, you know what we do? Look, you look all worried. It's not
I
like
know.
you made this. We made this.
Yeah.
I was nervous. I was nervous to do it when I heard that you guys picked the Fox Red as one of the samples. I got nervous right away. I'm like, these are the more real traditional whiskey guys, and they're picking a flavored profile to play with. I was nervous to start, and now you're going to put a peated on top of cherry. That
Yeah, we do weird stuff.
hope your tongue stays in your face.
I've smoked barbecue with cherry wood, right? This could be amazing.
I've had barbecue. Well, at Distill America, I don't know if you guys ran into that crew, but it was a barbecue flavored whiskey that they
the
had.
curveball, yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that was something different.
With a pickle, it was delicious.
You're allowed your opinion.
Is it one of those things where you need to have the pickle? Otherwise, it just
I
doesn't
would
work?
think so. I think so because that's how I had it, and I thought it was great. I did not try it without a pickle. Might just be I really love pickles, but I did really enjoy that.
Oh, no, it was a pizza pachuga. One of the guys was mentioning. It reminds me of the pizza vodka night. It was pizza pachuga we had one night. That was overwhelming in a good way. It was actually really good. It was like it smelled like a ragu sauce and tasted like a deep dish pizza. So
And that was a spirit.
it was a spirit. Yeah.
Boy,
It's in my car right now.
I think I'd have a Coors Banquet beer and eat the pizza and enjoy the beer and the pizza separately.
All right, so
Surprisingly good.
I know the noses. It just adds this cherry note to it. A little softens up a little bit of the peat here on the nose. That jam flavor you were mentioning, Mike, I'm getting on the nose.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to do
Weird.
this and pull out the Pete's Beast and do a comparison on it.
So surprisingly good. Oh God,
No, it's
Yeah,
it's
it
good
really
because it's
is.
it's so good. I don't know how to feel about that.
it's like a nicely sherry finished peated whiskey.
Yeah, I don't want to say overly sherry finish, but like it was a wet
Yeah.
barrel, going in. And
Do you remember when Canadian Club did their sherry cask finish? It was part of their signature series for a couple of years.
the people at work did? Yeah.
Oh, that was one of my favorites, and that's what that reminds me of is that sherry cask finish Canadian Club. There was a CC 12 year finish in that sherry cask. That was a nice product.
It lightens up on the peat note. The cherry muddles that out a bit, but it's just there enough to add depth to like the cherry notes and stuff going on.
Yeah.
This is dangerous.
I must have not put as much peated whiskey in mine as y'all's because it starts off just the same as the Fox Red did, and then instead of going to really good wheat whiskey, it transitions to really good peated whiskey.
Yeah. But you're left with just this little bit of like cherry notes, like on your
And then
lips
it finishes
tongue.
like cherry and peat, just riding off into the sunset together.
Your cherry and peat sparkles all over the place, right?
That's right.
Good.
That goes up there with one of my favorite blends.
It's really good.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to do a blended whiskey award at the end of the year now.
Well,
We should do that. What our favorite blend of the year?
Oh man,
I think we could do that. I was gonna
That'd be a
say
fun one.
Write this
Well,
down.
only-
'Cause you know what?
only
I'm
if
gonna
we-
forget it.
that's right, but we have to go with like the negative side too. I'm sorry, because sometimes those are just as impactful.
Yeah,
What didn't work?
Having the booby prize isn't a bad idea. We actually have that wall in the distillery. We have the wall of shame or wall of fame. There's really good stuff up there, but there's really terrible stuff up there too.
I thought it was like I thought it might have been a customer. It's like who had a bad night. Like, oh, you're over here.
Yeah.
No, that's all right. Well, that is Jake. These two releases are, like I said, worlds apart differently in style, but both uniquely and really, really well done. Like I wasn't quite sure about the Red Fox at first, but I was really surprised and really, really pleasantly surprised by what came out of that. Because it was a neat twist. Oh, sorry. Oh, Matt's wondering what was an experiment that didn't go quite so well that you guys may have had.
I remember it was probably my first couple months with the distillery. And I think, Pat, you would appreciate this. I think I did a little research on you and how you feel about, was it anise?
Yeah, I don't.
Anise?
I have a strict stance.
I knew Mike would laugh about that because that was one of the episodes I watched last night. It made me think about one of the first products I made kind of on my own. I went completely rogue. We had a spirits competition, or it was a cocktail competition for a customer appreciation, and I was trying to do a traditional Sazerac with everything we had in house. And we didn't have an herb saint, and we didn't have an absinthe. So I went to Pete and I said, well, I need an absinthe. He goes, well, you're not bringing anything in for this cocktail competition. I said, well, then I'm making an absinthe. And he goes, no, you're not. And so I did. And it ended up being really good. The cocktail didn't win because I don't know how an ice cream drink wins in a distillery, but it did. I was a little bit heartbroken. I guess the purist in me, thinks that you mix anything with ice cream, it makes a good cocktail, and that one hurt bad. But
that's kind of cheating. Yeah.
I don't think that was an absolute terrible experiment. I know the spam flavored vodka that we made was not good. All the chemical profile and the things that kind of balance out to keep spam alive for 25 years on the shelf compounds when you put it into a vodka. So that was a really bad experiment, and I would not recommend that one.
Did you keep the spam gelatin out of the process, or did you include that in the process?
I think a chunk of the can went in. I think the whole thing was in there. Maybe a chunk of label. The whole profile was there. Yeah, if you can imagine chemical hot dog, water, vodka. Perfect tasting notes.
Wow. Just needed some Velveeta and chicken and a biscuit crackers to throw in there, and
I think Malort on top with a little bit of floater with it. Perfect.
I kind of want that now to mix it in Malort. Just to be like, let's see how bad it can get, right?
Oh, spam! That's a unique one to go with. That's just like hoping it comes around on a swim in the dark. So that's a bit of a gamble. I like that.
Well, with that failure, that gave us the premise for our bacon jalapeno vodka that does so well. So, like, it's one of those things. A dismal failure gave us a. I don't know how we decided that another meat-based vodka was going to work, but it ended up working. So.
Well, you went with a better meat.
Absolutely. There's nothing in this world that cannot be improved by addition of bacon. I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah, my son and I were having that discussion, and I'm like, bacon and butter, you can pretty much add it to whatever, and you're good. No, but these, like I was saying before, what you guys have coming out and always have has always been, I don't want to say a surprise, but for where you guys are, I always call you guys like a little sleeping giant out in the middle of nowhere in the North Woods. I was gonna say people don't always expect stuff, but you're a distillery that whenever we go there, whenever we try stuff or have something, it's consistently good. And that part alone is hard to do, and then you're playing with weird shit all over the place, and it's turning out right. So you can't. I'm not upset. That's fantastic because putting the almond in there is something I wouldn't have done, but it adds a really nice rounding, creamy flavor to it that I wouldn't have gotten, and the peat is outstanding. So I just hell, the blend was good. I'm almost done drinking that.
Even the last sip to cheers out on it.
Yeah, I know. I made it a little bit more of a blend, and I went a little heavier on the peat this time. But no, I need to get up there.
Well, you know your guy. I do the tours. I got samples in the back. I can take you through the back wall. There's a lot of cool stuff that isn't quite out yet. That is in the experimental phase that I think you guys appreciate. The little teaser thing.
Oh, there's all your teasers are good, but the normal stuff you're doing is just fun too. So I mean, it's a great place to stop. Obviously, I call it like a destination distillery because I was going to say in the summer, Minocqua was a bigger family summer destination for stopping at, fishing, other things, and you got a lot of stuff around it. There's a bigger safari zoo and other stuff, so it's not just one tiny town. But there's some places that we've found that if you're in that touristy section, that they cave in quality issues would be a phrasing that might be accurate, where they kind of mail it in and it's a tourist trap rather than a distillery. And that's not what you guys are. So we commend you for not taking the shortcuts on stuff and really putting out quality products. So
thank you. That means a lot.
Awesome. Well, I think it's been about an hour. Well, we've taken up a lot of your time tonight, Jake, and we appreciate it, but we'll let you get back to your life. But thank you for coming on, and we may contact you again in the future because, like I said, consistently, you guys are putting out really great products, and we love letting people know about it because if everyone's always looking for some place they don't know, and I was going to say, if you don't know these guys, get a couple bottles and you will be happy with it. So, and everyone,
thank you so much for the opportunity, and I hope to see you guys again. And Mike, Distill America, I bet you're not skipping our table next year, are you?
No, I am not. I am not. A little
jab in there.
No, trust me. I afterwards, I had it in my mind I was going to try to be more responsible and picky, and I don't know how I walked by you guys. I have no idea. I don't. But then as soon as those guys said it, was like, so
I think you put a little small leash on Mr. Weddle there, and he'll bring you right to us. A couple times.
I'm not a person to follow at Distill America. I'm going to be 100% honest. I just go. Just like, oh, what's going on? I'm like the kid with ADD who needs a leash. Just like, oh, what's over there? What's over there? What's over here? Oh, that looks interesting. What's that? What's that? What's that? Hey, Mitch, didn't you start off over there? Why are you 40 feet that way now? It's like, well, I got bored and I went. And then I got excited and I went somewhere else. And oh, my God.
Morgan's got the notebook of what they had on the side.
Yeah.
I knew he'd get excited before the end of this.
Put a shock collar on him.
Oh, please don't. My heart's already bad enough.
But like I was saying, Jake, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it, and the quality of products you guys are putting out. This was fun for us, and thank you for the samples and everything. Thank Cal and Sarah and Jake. Everything was great, and like I said, we're sending out some of the samples to a couple other places, so you may see a couple other reviews or talks about them in the future, because David, the guy who does a much better job than everything at us than we do, he's into peated whiskey as well too. So I think he'll find this pretty interesting. So thanks for being on, Jake, and we can't wait to talk to you again. And cheers until then.
Prost, gents. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's not the size of the den that matters; it's the love of whiskey. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you very much.